Monday Night Football coming off maybe its busiest stretch of the season, back-to-back weekends of two games on Monday. And now this upcoming Monday, they got the Chiefs in Arrowhead, which is always great television. We pleased to be joined by Tommy Mitchell, who's Senior Operations Manager Live Sports at ESPN, working on the Monday Night Football property. Tommy, always a pleasure to speak with you. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks, Brandon. Happy to be here.
Of course. Obviously, I've talked to you many years about the college football property. You've been heavily involved with the college football season, the CFP, which of course expands this year. You make this transition to Monday Night Football. Congratulations on it. It's very exciting. What's that transition been like for you, and what's different?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's funny. I just was at my 20-year anniversary for ESPN. And I realized that I think I was on the college football project for I think 18 of the 20 years that I've been here. So
Huh.
it's definitely been a transition for me. It's still football, but obviously we play it on a different day and at a much larger scale than what I'm used to. Um, it's actually been a fairly easy transition for me, and I say that in a way. Um, if you look at the production team and the operations team that's on site every week with Monday Night Football, a lot of them came from the college football world.
Hmm.
The Derek Mobleys, the Steve Ackles, the Jack Coffees, the Brian Rasteens, they all lived with me in college football for a number of years. So that made a fairly easy transition for me, at least personality wise, right? I have a trust factor with all those folks. Um, and so they give me a little bit more leeway to kind of learn the ropes on the NFL side, as we get things going. But yeah, it's definitely a different animal, right? The NFL is different than college football. It is, the NFL corporate has a much more, involved day-to-day thing than you do in college football. College football, a lot of times, you know, you are dealing with the conferences at times, but most of the time you're dealing with the specific, college institution or whatever, and what they do or do not allow. The NFL obviously has different levels of rules and things that we have to go through. So that's kind of been my biggest learning curve is just, dealing with the league office as opposed to just calling the folks directly at whatever school that we're at this week.
Sure. And I'm sure from an operations perspective, I mean, at least from a lay person like myself, the obvious differences seem to be that instead of producing hundreds of games in stadiums all across the country, you're hyper focusing, but on much bigger scale in terms of individual shows. From the nitty gritty day to day, is it purely just like, hey, it's fewer venues to deal with? More equipped for television in most circumstances. I mean, a lot of college venues, especially football stadiums, have come a long way. But from a nitty gritty day to day, what are some of the biggest differences for you and any mental shifts you need to make?
Yeah, that's a good point. The biggest difference for me, and I know this may sound silly, is like I know the schedule. Um,
Right. Yeah.
College
It helps. Yeah.
football is like, and I don't say that in a bad way. That's one of my favorite pieces about college football was the 6 day pick scenario, and you know going through a weekend and having no idea where any one of our 30 games could be next weekend, and just all the logistical challenges that come with that many people trying to move to different venues. The NFL is different, right? We know our schedule, even the weeks that we don't know, like a week 18 or a wild card weekend. We know it has to be in any number of finite venues and likely places that we've been to before. And to your point, all of which have a standard level of kind of broadcast infrastructure that you don't always get. You run the gamut on college. It's some of them are glorified high school fields that have nothing installed up to professional level venues. Um, so that's been the biggest difference for me operationally is knowing where I'm going, and that allows us to plan things farther out, right? So you can kind of see the games that are kind of a big deal, and you can plan for those, which makes things a little bit easier. But on the flip side, yeah, it's certainly less in scale as far as numbers go. I'm not in 15 or 17 different venues every week. I'm focused on one, sometimes two, if we have doubleheader games those weeks. So that does allow you to get more into the you said the nitty gritty, right? So it's not as much treetops as you are on college football, where you're really relying on your operations team that's on site to handle a lot of the work that goes in because they're the ones that are there and you've got so many other events to pay attention to. So there's more eyeballs on it, both from a viewership perspective and from internally. It's obviously Monday Night Football is obviously the most valuable property that we have in the event production space here at ESPN. So there's a different level of stress that comes comes with it. There's far more people paying attention to it, and those little things that can just be annoyances to us in the college football world when things go wrong, and you just fix them on the fly. There's when those happen on an NFL game, it's a lot bigger deal, I guess,
Mm.
would be a way to say it. But you navigate through that. It's all about the communication, and we've got a ton of really good people who work on the NFL, and have kind of paved the way for me to be, to come through. Steve Carter was on the NFL for us for I think 25 years, if not longer than that. So, he's out enjoying retirement, but I get to kind of float in on the coattails of the path that he kind of created, and kind of take some of the pieces I learned on college football and transition them over. But it's been a lot of fun to learn a whole new, sport category.
Sure. And as I kind of mentioned at the top, you guys are kind of in the thick of a pretty busy stretch for you all right now. You're coming off the week back-to-back weeks where you had two games, which is not the norm, you for you guys. And then you've got the Chiefs on this Monday night, which they've become television darlings. They're maybe the most watched team in the NFL right now. And then you got some big games coming up after that. Hopefully, my Jets are, figure something out this weekend and they actually make that game against the Bills interesting. I'm not too hopeful, but what for people who don't work on a property like Monday Night Football, where you really can focus on a single game each week, what do you need to dip into on those odd weeks where you do have two going on simultaneously, one on ABC and one on ESPN?
Yeah, so the interesting thing about, and I think everybody kind of gets into this now, but ESPN, our bread is buttered on what we call shoulder programming, right? It's
Mhm.
never just the game. It's very rare that we're doing just the game. Whether it's a Manning cast or NFL Live or Monday Night Countdown or any of the studios, the Scott Van Pelt show, any of those
Mhm.
studio things, they're always kind of tied into the event. Um, that's a lot easier for us. It's to manage when we're doing one game. Everybody's in one spot. Everybody's, we've got the field set. We're doing all that kind of stuff. And it's a lot, and there's a bunch of moving pieces, but everybody's there. When we get to doubleheader weekends, you're splitting up the people who are typically all in one spot, right? So you're creating more breadth with less depth. So that's more the challenge, right? Like the game is going to be the game. I usually don't have any concerns about us getting, a football game on the air. It's all about how do we work the ancillary stuff, that shoulder programming. How do we get all those feeds back and forth between each game so they can share things back to Bristol, to any of our, satellite campuses that need that kind of stuff to put things together. So that's really where the doubleheader stuff comes in. And again, that's a communication issue, right? So as long as we are working with our transmission specialists here in Bristol, those in the Woodlands that are handling the ABC portion of things, because we have an exclusive ABC game and an exclusive ESPN game when we do those. That's what it's all about, right? So my job in those instances are far more to be the traffic cop and make sure that this group who works in a silo, because they've got, transmission has, yeah, we got two football games, but there's 900 other feeds that are coming in to service all of ESPN on a Monday, whether it's baseball playoffs or soccer games across the world, all those types of things. So trying to make sure that you get everybody's attention at the right time and funnel them all together so that we're all kind of pointing towards the same thing. And like I said, we got a couple weeks under our belt for the first 2 weeks, and then we dove right into back-to-back doubleheaders. Then we go into Kansas City this week, which is always a big game. The Jets game that you mentioned is, whether the Jets play well or not, it doesn't change the fact that NBC has the Giants game the night before.
Oh
So
yeah, sure.
we're sharing a compound at the same stadium, so it becomes an operational challenge and a logistical challenge for us just with another game in the stadium the night before. So and then the week after that, we're right back to a doubleheader with an ESPN Plus game out in Arizona. So it's definitely a pretty busy stretch here of making sure that we're on top of things, and going back to the point of at least I know where I'm going on those weeks, so we can have
Mm.
conversations about a game that's happening in 3 weeks versus the college football side, which is a lot of like, okay, well, we can't really have conversations until we know where we're going and what we're doing.
Right, right. That's interesting. As you kind of have gotten settled in on the property here, has there been any notable additions or changes to the production and operations plan? Anything that you guys are doing that you really think, I don't know if it necessarily helps differentiate, but you really help feel like, kind of puts a stamp on what Monday Night Football is all about.
Yeah, I mean, Monday Night Football has always been a big show. It will continue to be a big show. This year, we added a couple slash cameras and a second high end zone on a weekly basis, and we're doing down the line robos down both sidelines on a weekly basis. So nothing crazy or off the wall or anything like that, but just extra pieces to make sure that we have everything covered on a weekly basis. We're not doing it every single week, but we do have live drone coverage on a number of weeks. Kansas City coming up will be one of them. So integrating our in-house drone team into those types of things and partnering with the NFL on that over fly zones and what's safe and all of that kind of thing, and following the Disney regulations as well as the NFL regulations and getting all that paperwork squared away. So, we don't have anything, you know, crazy or crazy new that we haven't had in the last couple of years, but just we continue to fill out the broadcast to make sure that we've got everything covered. I'm sure we'll see some things before the end of the season with some testing of some new technologies. We're always on top of that kind of stuff, but nothing on a weekly basis right now.
Cool. All right. Last thing before I let you go, I'm going to go off script a little bit here, but what's it mean for you to be a part of this property? I mean, Monday Night Football is one of those like rare television entities. It like feels like it's in a bucket with like Saturday Night Live or something, where it's got a history and it's got characters and it's got people have been watching it for a really, really long time. You've worked at ESPN for a long time, and sometimes you can work in the industry and maybe these things don't hit as much. But do you find yourself being like, man, working on Monday Night Football, dude?
Yeah, even stepping back, a little bit, like working at ESPN. I mean, you told 15-year-old me that I would have, a 20-year career at ESPN. It was like, wait, what are you talking about? Like that's the dream, right? Um, I think everybody knows that, there are days that jobs feel like jobs.
Sure.
But I will say there's far more days that don't feel like a job. And yeah, the idea of Monday Night Football and what it is and the history that's behind it. And, it's not lost on me that my bosses and, the Chris Calcinaries of the worlds and the Dennis Clearys of the worlds have kind of given me, that trust level to say, hey, this is the property, right? This is the show. We have a Super Bowl coming up in 3 years, which is the first ESPN Super Bowl we've ever had. Obviously, there was one on, there's been some on ABC, 20, 25 years ago. But yeah, it's definitely not lost on me to be a part of something that is, an iconic brand. And, there's not a lot of events and types of things that I probably would have had the appetite to move off of college football. I really, really like college football. It's been a big part of my life. I am still working on the CFP this year. I couldn't let it go, so I'm going to double dip this year on CFP. But yeah, Monday Night Football is one of those things. I think when the opportunity comes along, it's one of those ones that you have to jump at to be a part of. I joke with some of the folks, they're like, oh, what's it like to be on Monday Night Football? And I'm like, hey, look, this show's been on the air long before I got here, and it will be on the air long before I leave.
Sure.
But to be a part of it for a time and have my name attached to it on the operational side, like it is, it's a special thing, and it's all about working with people, and that's what makes all of our jobs, I think, better, is when you like the people that you work with. And like I said earlier, having a number of folks that I had good relationships with on the college football side to be the folks that are kind of steering Monday night at this, in this time frame, it makes things, a lot of fun and a lot of good opportunities to feel like you belong and that you are part of a group that's all kind of focused on the same thing and everybody's going in the same direction, which is always nice.
Yeah. And it's been cool from the outside over the last like decade or so, watching all those people kind of climb up and from the college ranks into the
Yeah.
NFL ranks, like you said, the
Yep.
Ackles and the Mobleys of the world and everything like that. Very, very cool. And now we can add you to that list.
There you
Uh,
go.
Tommy, really appreciate you taking the time. Wish you all and the team nothing but the best going forward for the remainder of the season. Still lots of football to be played and to be broadcast, but we are rooting for you and wish nothing but the best going forward. Thanks for the time today.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, remember Monday Night Football is back again with the Saints at the Chiefs this Monday night. You can watch that just after 8 o'clock Eastern on ESPN. For more from us here at Sports Video Group, you can head on over to our website at sportsvideo.org.